friends, welcome back. Right now in these times of COVID, there are two meta conversations taking place in the crypto industry. One, what is this massive economic disruption going to mean for digital currencies? And two, how can blockchain technology help in a pandemic? To start to answer the first question, we're about to see the rollout of a $6 trillion bailout and stimulus package. And what that impact will have on digital currencies is kind of a big question. So many people think that the 2008 recession was the reason that Satoshi Nakamoto, the anonymous founder of Bitcoin, created the system in the first place. And when that started, there was a headline from the Times of London that was included in the Genesis block, which is the very first block in the Bitcoin blockchain, that quoted the second round of bailouts from the banks. And we think that this happened for probably two reasons. One, to timestamp the block, as newspapers are often used to do. And two, to create some commentary on the problems of fractional reserve banking. The huge debts that the governments are creating right now, the massive inflation that we as a people are going to experience as a result, these are what many people argue make a system like Bitcoin necessary, that we need something that's going to solve these kinds of problems. You may know already that Bitcoin is deflationary, which means there will only ever be a certain amount of them in supply, which means that that price will increase, their value will increase over time, unlike the US dollar, which we will continue to print and it will continue to lose value. So the other reason that Bitcoin is important is that it has no central authority. So unlike humans who are prone to panic and fear in times of crisis, Bitcoin can't be tampered with. The question that I'm fielding the most these days is if cryptocurrencies are supposed to be a safe haven or a hedge against these kinds of traditional finance problems, why isn't the price of Bitcoin going crazy? The price not rising hugely isn't a big surprise to many people in the industry, and that's true for a few reasons. The primary reason being that in times of recession, cash is king. People are trying to keep their powder dry. They've cleared out of, easily convertible assets. They've sold stocks. They're liquidating as much as they can to move into cash. So as we talked about in last week's video, the use of cash is actually up in March and April from previous times this year and last year. And many people in the investment industry, you'll hear the ratio tossed around a lot, that people want like 70% cash to 30% assets. This is likely going to change as a consequence of the bailout and the subsequent inflation, and as that starts to sink in. Right now, we are looking at a national debt that is larger than the US economy is going to be this year. And that hasn't happened since World War II. So in comparison, like to show you the numbers, the debt this year is going to be 30 times the size of the debt in the height of the 2008 recession. So it's going to be much larger than an already really bad problem. When this starts to sink in, people are going to start realizing this is going to be hugely detrimental to the US dollar. And we're going to start seeing a rise in Bitcoin and other currencies around then. Right now, people are really in shock. There's so many issues around this problem between taxes and job loss and unemployment that many people are really just focused on between now and the summer. Like what's going to happen until July. And once the shock starts to wear off and once the panic starts to ebb, we're going to start seeing people really like raising their heads up out of a bad hangover and saying like, what is this going to feel like? Hyperinflation isn't really predicted to hit until 2021. So the price may rise like this summer, this fall, next year. It's kind of up in the air. The next pressing question that people are asking right now is, can blockchain technology help in a pandemic? And if so, how? The blockchain enthusiasts are really excited about different ways that it can help, and sometimes we get a little overeager, but there really are a few ways that it can make a big difference here. Some of those ways are things like through information sharing. So we have thousands of researchers and scientists all over the world working furiously to come up with new findings and understand this virus. Blockchain technology can help us audit and verify the sources and the authenticity of that data. The ledgers themselves make this flood of information easier to trace, easier to credit, to backtrack, and to source who came up with which findings. The same goes for supply chains, both in healthcare and in things like personal protective equipment. We can reliably track inventory, source new supplies, verify quantities. There's a project called Real Times, which is a technology firm that's looking to verify and stop counterfeiting in different projects. And they're right now working with something called a non-fungible record to verify KN95 masks out of China. So it's essentially like putting a token on each box as it comes out, which is then like a certificate of authenticity once it gets received. These things are totally unforgeable, so we can really trust the system. One of my favorite implications for blockchain technology is in medical research. So how can we have the greatest number of people sharing their data in ways that furthers the research the fastest while maintaining all of the patient privacy? The decentralized ID system is something that I talk about in detail in other videos, but the sum of it is that rather than having a bunch of different identities online, so one for Amazon, one for Facebook, one for eBay, one for your bank, you have one super solid, unhackable identity that you control and that you unlock for different elements and for different projects. So you unlock your t-shirt preference and your shipping address for Amazon. You unlock your high school information and maybe your current workplace for Facebook. And in the case of medical records, you unlock your health data in a privatized way so that you remain anonymous, but your health history goes into a big pool with other users' data. That then gets aggregated, and rather than having to seek out potential candidates, screen them, then conduct the research, pharmaceutical companies can tap into this massive pool, find the data and information that's helpful to them, and essentially crowdsource solutions. So in the future, as these ID systems improve, we're actually going to get paid for our participation. So rather than giving up our data for free to Amazon, they are going to pay us to share with them to make their platforms more robust, more personalized, and more valuable. In the case of healthcare, a unique genome could even mean huge incentives for each of us. So if you have something interesting going on with you, the pharmaceutical companies will pay you to participate in these pools. For right now, COVID research is going to be helped by finding different ways that people can contribute their data in secure ways to aggregate vaccine research that's being conducted all over the world. And we're already seeing small examples of these things happening. So in Berlin, there's a startup called Sparity that's helping with decentralized AD programs to get patients to social distance while still get their medication. Honduras is using a project with blockchain to help track and manage people who were tested positive and given stay-at-home orders. And CoreWeave is a project out of the US where the largest Ethereum miners for that blockchain have redirected the processing power of 6,000 computer chips towards research to find a therapy for coronavirus. So in order to boost the research, they've essentially created like a decentralized supercomputer from all of these computers around the world to come together and like mass hack the research together, which is super cool. So that's it for right now. Those are the two big questions that are going around the blockchain community at this moment. And I'm super excited to talk about this with you. It's a crazy time. These are big questions. If you ever want to reach out, please do. I'm currently offering free free 30-minute phone calls. So if you want to nerd out on blockchain, if this stirred up any questions for you, reach out. I'm super happy to talk, and I hope you're staying healthy, and I'll see you next week.